Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to participate in these conferences, and hello to everyone joining remotely. So I will start the presentation here. Before we start, some forward-looking statements. Now I'll go through most of this presentation, and I believe afterwards it'll be shared with all of the participants so they can go through. And if you have any questions, please feel free to forward them to Gilbert. We'll be able to send them over to me, and we'll be able to answer any of the questions that you guys have that might not be answered towards the end of the session. So usually what I like to start off with is this sort of quote. You know, at TAAT, we're not looking to create new smokers. We try to give existing smokers the choice to leave nicotine behind while keeping the experience they love. And I think that's a very important distinction between what we do and what vape did. The vape category went out and tried to attract new users to the category, and that's what really forced the regulators' hands to start regulating the product. Our product currently is not regulated. It is not taxed like tobacco. It's not taxed at all outside of sales tax in many jurisdictions. And the marketing of the product is not restricted like it is with tobacco, and we'd like to keep that runway as long as we can. And I think the best way to do that is by targeting the actual consumers that we want, which is people who smoke. This will kind of give you an overview of who we are, what our product is, the different varieties that we make, and who our target consumer is. So I think we've become much more refined in terms of our approach, especially over the last number of quarters as we really start to ramp up commercialization of our product. This is what the current cigarette marketplace looks like. In my time at Philip Morris, I've come to know that the vast majority of smokers have actually tried alternative nicotine delivery systems. Whether it be vape, patches, gums, lozenges, it really doesn't matter. The vast majority of them have tried it. They're actively looking for an alternative. Yet if you take a look at the nicotine market, you'll still see that over 75 to 80% of smokers still smoke. So if everybody's tried vape, why is everybody still smoking? And when you look at it through that lens, you start to understand that smoking for smokers is actually the preferred delivery mechanism. And that's why we wanted to create a better combustible product than anything that exists in the market today. This is how big the market actually is. For a lot of people who don't follow the tobacco industry, sometimes the size and scale is lost. Tobacco is almost $1 trillion a year in global revenue. To compare it to something like bottled water is $250 billion globally. So tobacco is 4 times the size of water. That's really how big it is. There's almost 1 billion or over 1 billion smokers worldwide. And I think that there's ample market for us to go out and penetrate around the globe with a product that I think any smoker would be hard pressed to not at least try. And the beauty is you don't really need even a measurable market share in order to do astronomical numbers in this industry. And that's why the tobacco companies tend to make as much money as they do, because the margins tend to be quite high. And the number of consumers you actually need in order to make significant revenue is not meaningful compared to the size. So if you take a look at the US as an example, the US has about 40 million smokers. If we were to capture 100,000 of them, 200,000 of them, which is nothing. The beauty is there's still 40 million smokers. So, I mean, there's ample market for us to go after. And I think that we're definitely in the process now of ramping up and starting to capture our fair share of that market. This is another interesting slide. The general consensus among smokers is that cigarettes are increasingly becoming more expensive. As they become more expensive, smokers tend to look to shift down the market because there's different price tiers across each cigarette category. So we wanted to come in at the lowest price tier and capture all of those dissatisfied smokers as they start to look for cheaper and cheaper options. The way that we're able to do that is because we're not subject to the same excise taxes that cigarettes are. Therefore, we can offer it at a price point most cigarette brands couldn't even possibly compete at, while still enjoying the same margins that tobacco companies would otherwise make. And I think that really gives us an extraordinary competitive advantage in the market. We've designed this product to look, smell, taste, everything like a cigarette. Because when you want consumers that are incumbent consumers that are smoking a competitive product, you want to give them something that is almost as indistinguishable as possible, but yet better, so that the switch is as easy as possible. And that's why we engineered our product to behave almost identical to a cigarette, if not better. And the beauty is, it doesn't have tobacco, it doesn't have nicotine, but it will still satisfy the same way as a cigarette does, because we're able to deliver CBD, which is non-addictive. Now, CBD does have the ability to satiate a nicotine withdrawal, and I think that, again, gives us a fundamentally better product than something that is otherwise fixated on delivering an addictive substance in order to sell its product. So for me, I've always felt that TAAT is the best option for smokers on the market, outside of, say, quitting if they really wanted to quit. But if they're looking for a fundamentally better experience, I do believe TAAT is it. Now, here's basically what the product looks like. So there are other hemp cigarettes in the market. They'll look like hemp, they'll smell like hemp, they'll taste like hemp, and they otherwise behave like hemp, which is fine. However, for a cigarette for 20 years, they're not looking for something that tastes like cannabis. They're looking for something that tastes, looks, feels, and behaves like tobacco if they want to make the switch and actually stick. And that's why we spent so much time on R&D to develop the product so that it will mimic that of a cigarette and tobacco. And you can see it here, you know, what a Marlboro cigarette would look like and what our advanced tobacco formulation looks like. And they're very, very similar. They'll smoke the same, it'll deliver the same number of drags, it'll feel the same. And in my mind, it tastes even better than what a cigarette does. And the feeling you get afterwards, for many smokers that have tried it, they've written us back and said, I actually enjoy this much better than a cigarette. And I think that's really a testament to our R&D group that has worked tirelessly to bring this product to market and really refine it to the point where I think the adoption rate is really going to start to tick up. One of the other things that we wanted to do is ensure that the experience for a consumer, again, is as similar to a cigarette as possible. And that's why we designed the packaging, the branding, the way it's delivered to resemble that of a cigarette. You see, when a smoker goes out and buys tobacco, it's a series of micro habits. And we want to make sure that none of those micro habits actually feel any different when they switch over to TAAT. And again, this comes down to sort of all of the fine details and making sure that we've hit every single one of these things as closely as possible so that a smoker, when they try TAAT, feels as comfortable as they would when they have a cigarette. Here's our management team. Again, you'll be able to review this. I think we put together a fantastic team over the last year with some great industry experience, some great capital markets experience, and I think we've been delivering quarter over quarter, both on growth and sort of corporate development. So for me, I'm very pleased with the team that we've been able to put in place. Here's some of the milestones that we've been able to hit over the last number of months. It recently culminated with a capital raise of about 10 million, which came in from the folks behind Horizons Ventures in Hong Kong. Now, Horizons Ventures, for those who might know, is the venture capital arm for Li Ka-shing. They had put in about 15 million around this time last year, and subsequently put in another 10 million this year. I think they've been very happy and very pleased with the product. They think that it's something that can definitely disrupt this enormous market, and they've been, you know, fantastic partners for us throughout this whole process. You know, both from an ability to open some doors and obviously a source of capital for us. So we're very pleased with that partnership and to continue strengthening it over time. I'll leave that there for a sec. So this is really what our objectives are for the coming year. We want to be the leading manufacturer of combustible alternatives to cigarettes, and I think that we're well on our way. We make, in my mind, the absolute best alternative to traditional cigarettes in the market today, and I think that this will continue to improve over time, no different than the iPhone. I mean, if you take a look at the first iPhone, it was a fantastic product compared to what it is today. Well, I guess there was some room for continuous improvement, but it wouldn't have felt that way in the beginning. And I want to take a similar approach where we're constantly refining and improving our product, adding new brands to the slate. And I think that we've really developed, a foundation for this business that we can catapult ourselves to the next level. So here's how TAAT is made. Basically, there's primary, secondary, and then your distribution. Your primary is how you take the product, and we filed for IP on this. So it's the transformation process where the hemp undergoes a variety of different processes so that we can get it to behave and taste like a tobacco. Then it goes to secondary manufacturing. Secondary manufacturing is really where the cigarettes get rolled and packaged and put onto crates, and then off to distribution, where it'll ultimately end up in stores. Now, we started towards the end of December in 2020. We started in one state with one distributor. Right now, we're in over 20 states. We have over 20 distributors. And as I'll get to shortly, we've started adding international distribution as well. So the company has been growing significantly quarter over quarter, and I would expect that growth to continue into 2022 as we start really developing both our domestic footprint in the US and our international footprint in Europe. We really wanted to set this up so that there's win-win economics throughout the entire supply chain or entire distribution chain. Tobacco typically has very thin margins after it leaves the manufacturer. For us, we're still, again, able to enjoy significant margins, upwards of about 60% gross margin. We've also provided for enhanced margins on the distributor and retailer side, so that when they start carrying, distributing, and selling our product, they can make even more money than they would selling cigarettes. And I think that provides an even further incentive on top of the value proposition to consumers for them to become a bit more active and help move the product for us. So we wanted to make sure that everybody involved with TAAT is able to enjoy enhanced margins alongside us for the product that we make. So as I had just alluded to, we've started adding international distribution. So we've signed a distribution agreement in the UK and Ireland. We've already started shipping product. We've also signed a distribution deal in Australia. And we're in the process of getting the product ready to start shipping there. And those were really our first two international exercises. On the back of that, I think we're right now in the sort of advanced stages of discussions with a number of distributors throughout Europe that have seen the product, like the product. They've tested it with consumers, with retailers, with wholesalers, distributors. Everybody is quite keen on the product and their general view of how it will perform in the market. And I think in the coming months, we'll be able to announce some additional distribution partners throughout Europe as we really start ramping up commercialization there. So for us, it's definitely an exciting time as we start to really grow this product and brand. And that'll lead us to brand. So again, one of the advantages that we have with TAAT is that we're not subject to the same tobacco restrictions that cigarette companies are. I mean, everybody knows the Marlboro Man. Probably couldn't tell me the last time you saw him. And for us, we really don't run into that issue. So we are able to do billboards. We are able to do digital advertising. We are able to do sponsorship. We're able to do all of the things that tobacco companies would otherwise love to do, but they just can't because the regulations are written in a particular way. The beauty about TAAT is, given how the product is formulated, it typically does not trip any of those restrictions and gives us the freedom to really help consumers understand what the value proposition is. So we've done a number of different initiatives, one of them with the Professional Bull Riding League, which is a large event property in the US. tours a lot throughout the southern US. They're just in their world championships right now. We've got a fantastic partnership with them, and that'll last over the next couple of years. We've also been able to bring in some high-profile athletes like Floyd Mayweather, and we sponsored his fight against Logan Paul earlier in the summer, which I think went over tremendously well. We got a number of sponsored posts from Floyd, and that really opened us up to a lot of additional sponsorship opportunities that we're in the process of vetting now. So again, I think the future for TAAT is bright, especially on the marketing and branding side. Now, one of the other things that we'll do is sort of tactical marketing. And really, at the end of the day, I mean, if you think about an alcohol company's main goal is to put liquid to lips. And for us, it's really to put the stick in the mouth. And we will run intercepts in stores where we will be able to put TAAT in the hands of smokers. We will go to places where smokers are, whether it's bars, restaurants, nightclubs, places of work, and we'll be able to intercept them while they're having a cigarette and provide them with this better alternative and really engage in that sort of hand-to-hand combat, because I think that's really how this war is going to be won. So we want to be able to really sort of expand on that presence, and especially as our store count starts to expand, ramp up in that initiative, because I think that's really going to start converting smokers. And that's, again, from a lot of the experience I had at Philip Morris. It's tried, tested, and true, and we want to make sure that we can employ it as well. You know, omni-channel marketing is definitely something that we're also actively engaged in. Again, as we start opening up stores, we can start distributing digital advertising around those geographical areas and really help drive traffic to the store to enhance sell-through. So we try to be as smart as we can, both in our spend and our strategy and execution, so that we can deliver the best value for the dollar and for our consumers. One of the other things that we're able to do is e-commerce. So we've set up ecom. And again, as we start rolling out both throughout the US and throughout Europe, I think ecom will be an interesting channel for us, because if a smoker can't find a store close to them that carries TAAT, they can always go online and buy it there. So you can see here sort of how our revenue has grown over the last 3 quarters. Q1, we started with 165,000. By Q2, we were already at 691. Q3, we were at 1.3. And I anticipate growth to continue over the coming quarters, again, as we really start to ramp up both on the distribution side and the global expansion side. This is an overview of our cap table. Again, you know, we had just completed that raise with the folks behind Horizons Ventures. And that'll sort of give you a little bit of an overview here. So we are well capitalized. And again, I think we're very well set up for the future. There's a bit of a comp table that kind of shows you where we are against some of our competitors. Again, I think we've done extraordinarily well over the last number of months, but there's still an enormous runway ahead of us. And I think that, you know, we're well positioned to start taking advantage of it.
Great. Thank you for sharing your updates with us. So let's get going here. There's a few questions here. The first one coming from Tom Jasper. He said, when can we expect TAAT on the actual UK store shelves? And is TAAT in active discussions with any companies in Asia?
TAAT should be on store shelves shortly. We've sent an initial shipment there. I believe it's just en route now to some of the distribution partners to get it out into stores. And we're in the process of manufacturing a large order that will likely be in the UK in the coming months. So it should be on store shelves, widely distributed on store shelves shortly. When it comes to Asia, we've had some initial discussions. Right now, I think the focus, is Europe. But again, Europe came to us a lot faster than I would have thought. I wouldn't have anticipated that we would have already been in Europe within our first year of commercial operations. And that wasn't a push strategy, it was a pull strategy. We started getting inbounds from distributors in Europe that wanted to carry the product. We're starting to get a bit of that in Asia now. And again, if the opportunity makes sense, then I think we'll capitalize on it. And again, we're trying to set ourselves up so that we can take advantage of these things as quickly as possible and say yes to as many of these opportunities as we can.
Okay, let's squeeze in one more question before we go. Brian, he said, when you enter the European markets, do you need to use their raw materials? Will that affect your profit margins?
We don't need to use hemp grown in Europe. You'll need to use European compliant hemp, and that is available in the US. One of the main sticking points would be the overall THC content, which in Europe is 0.2 compared to the US, which is 0.3. However, given our manufacturing process, I can guarantee you that our product is always below 0.2. So even the current product, I don't believe would have any issues in Europe. If we need to use EU compliant hemp, it's readily available in the US, and we can run our primary and secondary there until we set up the secondary manufacturing in Europe, at which point we can still send the primary over and then get it manufactured in Europe. So I wouldn't anticipate any rule forcing us to use that compliant hemp to impact margins, because currently there's still enough of it that's readily available at a fantastic price.
Great. Again, thank you for coming here to share your recent updates and story with us, Setti.
All right. Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you.